Hey everybody, welcome to the Rational Review. So, if you are a believer in socialism, capitalism, no matter what you believe in, I'm sure that all of you believe that we need to change things to make things better for the average working person. Okay, which kind of brings up a lot of stuff. One of the things I want to cover with this topic is financial literacy. Financial literacy is impossible when you are in a certain demographic. And when I say certain demographic, I mean when you're making minimum wage or only a little bit better than minimum wage. Yeah, that's the demographic I'm talking about. And then, the ideas I have for this would trickle up, to the middle age, to the middle range earners as well. First, let's take a look. What do they say about financial literacy? All right, let's see what they say.
1, learn the language of money. You walk into a room and everybody is speaking a totally different language. You're going to be, okay, listen, room is not for me. Let me get on out of here. In order for you to have a chance of mastering your money, you first got to learn the language. 2, create a budget. Most people in life don't necessarily create a game plan for their lives. And then finally, you got to pay down debt. There's a lot of us who are skipping to investing. 1, learn the language of money.
Okay, so what we got? Learn language of money, create a budget, and pay down debt. Okay, so that sounds smart. That's financially literate. But financial literacy is impossible to engage in or, actually do if you're making minimum wage. It's crazy. Let's go, take a look at some of the wages and, kind of one of the reasons why people can't be financially literate. All right, so I came to ChatGPT and put in what would minimum wage be for Sacramento County based on the 30% rule that says rent, utilities, and renter's insurance should be no more than 30% of your gross earnings. Base it on the average price of a one-bedroom in that county. So I did this because all financial advisors, I made another video about this, they all suggest, I think it's the 30, 50, 20 rule or whatever, but the important part is the 30, okay, because that's the biggest cost, and you should only be spending 30% of what you make gross. So if you're making minimum wage, 30% of your gross should be enough for you to get a one-bedroom apartment. That's just, I'm sure everybody can agree with that. Okay, capitalism, socialism, everybody, I think everybody could agree that that would be a great next step to try to equalize things amongst all people in the country. So if we did this based on county, that'd be awesome. But see, so this first one that I did, we're not going to take this because what it did is it simplified it and took out the renter's insurance and utilities, but that's not what the 30% rule says. So let's go down to, all right, I want to come down to here because I want to show y'all right here. I told it, do it again, but like I said, the 30% rule says that 30% includes rent, utilities, and renter's insurance. And tell me why you didn't include it the first time. And it goes on to say that they did it, that ChatGPT did it for simplicity. So you're absolutely right. 30% rule includes all housing costs, including rent, utilities, and renter's insurance. My previous answers are made utilities and insurance for simplicity. So you got to make sure what you're telling and asking ChatGPT and make sure that you know what that you're paying attention to its responses. All right, so Los Angeles. Okay, here's where's the? I was looking for the formula. So one bedroom average is $24.88 a month. based on Rentometer for the first quarter of 2025. Zillow says more, but Rentometer is a little bit more accurate or trustworthy, I think. So typical utilities, $200 to $300 a month, and renter's insurance LA is about $20 a month. So here's the formula: rent plus the utilities plus renter's insurance give you this much per month. Income and hourly wages. So month of gross needed. This is the formula: the total needed, which is here, divided by 30%. And this is what your annual gross should be. You should be making $111,000 as minimum wage for a one-bedroom apartment to follow financial literacy rules. Okay, that goes out to $53.54 an hour. All right, and the key is tying this to companies. So this will adjust. So if rent goes up, I mean, the minimum wage goes up. Yeah, they can raise their prices at the stores to try and make up for this, but then it's going to make rent prices go up. Cost of living overall will go up. They all go up with each other and all go down with each other. So, I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's a couple other things that need to be thought about, but I think this is a good next step to be working on. So, Sacramento County, let's see how much Sacramento County. So, you need to be making, what is it, $79,000 a year, so $80,000 a year just for a one-bedroom apartment to be to actually implement financial literacy. All right. And it says, why I left utilities insurance out initially. I oversimplified focusing on the rent to estimate required income. This is a common shortcut. Yeah, which means the people with the money usually try to exclude these things because they don't want you to think about total costs of things and what you should be doing for financial literacy. Okay, how to apply this to every county. Okay, here's the actual formula that tells you how to do it for whatever county you're talking about. And then you come down here. Here's for Los Angeles and Sacramento. I'm going to scroll down. It tells you other stuff. Give me the top 20. The top 20 doing the formula for all of them. So here it is. And so you can see here the hourly wage for all these places is just insane what you should be making. And so I wanted to know all these places. I mean, some of them are kind of low, like Fresno is $35 an hour, but that's supposed to be minimum wage to be financially literate and actually be comfortable. All right, so now what I did was I actually said, okay, give me the same exact list, but add another column for current minimum wage in each county. All right, and then it does, and boom, look at this. This is insane. What it says to be, comfortable and financially literate as opposed to the actual minimum wage is just insane. It's like 2-3 times the minimum wage everywhere. Okay. Now let's see. Key takeaway. Yeah, it's just telling you some of the possible benefits and repercussions and saying, you got to make sure you're controlling rent. It's like California already has rent control where you can't raise rent, $500 a month. You can only raise it like 5% per year or something like that, or I don't know. But all they would need is some rules like that and some stuff just to keep it all in check. So let's go down. Talks about how it would be good for the economy. It could be. Oh yeah, I found it. So great. It's if we implement this type of minimum wage and it had to adjust for rent changes up or down, maybe by quarter, could this solve the current problem of raising minimum wage with companies? You're describing a dynamic rent indexed minimum wage system where wages adjust quarterly based on local housing costs. following the 30% rule. This would tie minimum wage more closely to cost of living, especially housing affordability. Oh, yeah. So improves housing stability, less homeless people. Okay, less people getting kicked out of their houses. So let me go find that spot where I asked about homelessness. Yeah, I'm just going to read this really quick because I just really like the way this tying minimum wage directly to local rent through dynamic quarterly adjusted system, especially if it fully covered rent, utility, and insurance, would have a significant impact on homelessness. But it wouldn't be a silver bullet. Here's the breakdown of how much it could help and where it could fall short. This is what I was talking about the positives and negatives. So over 70% of unsheltered homeless report income, but it's not enough to afford rent. That's crazy. Prevention. It would keep more low-wage workers affording housing. This is one of the limitations, not enough housing. But, they're not accounting for, two people living together. If you're both making minimum wage and you can both afford a one apartment, 2-bedroom is going to be cheaper than 2 one-bedrooms. That's just how it works. So you'd be able to save money by having a roommate, which is how it's supposed to be. How much could it reduce homelessness? Here we are. Then you could realistically reduce homelessness by 40 to 60% over several years in most counties, particularly among single adults, families with children, and the working poor. Final thoughts. It says rent indexed minimum wage done right would be one of the most powerful anti-homeless tools available, especially if it's combined with rent control, vacancy regulation, expansion of affordable housing, legal aid and eviction protection, supporting housing for non-working populations. That is just insane. All right, so now that we know, we could tie rent to income. We could do it, and we should do it, because it'll make lives better for everybody. And also, if you think about it, if minimum wage is higher and set at basic housing cost, how much better would the middle class people be doing? They'd be more like upper class because they'd be getting paid a lot more than the minimum wage. So this would help everybody. Everybody. Here's another financial literacy one. Rich people's secret. Let's see what this person has to say about it.
Here's a secret that rich people understand that if you ever want to get out of the struggle, you need to understand as well. It's actually not a secret. We're just not openly taught this. When you don't have money, you have to work for that money. When you do have money, you make it work for you. So how do you get from working just to make ends meet and pay your bills over to money is expanding and working for you? You probably don't want to hear this, but the answer is you're going to have to sacrifice, and we'll talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, she's going to be talking about, don't go out, don't do this, don't do. Yeah, but when you're making minimum wage, there is no sacrificing because you can't do anything, period. You pay your rent. That's like your whole paycheck. And then you're struggling to get food. You're going to food banks and stuff to try to get food for the week.
Looks like in a second. Here are the milestones you're going to have to meet to get to this other side. And this is the stuff that I'm teaching every single day on my channel because you can do this. First priority is saving up an emergency fund.
How do you have an emergency fund if you can't save any money because you only make enough money to pay for the rent, and that's about it? You have no extra money. There is no extra money.
$1,000 to $2,000 as a safety net, and then you go and you start paying off your high interest debt.
Yeah, unfortunately, your high interest debt or any debt you have, when you're poor, making minimum wage, barely paying rent, or living in your car, it's hard to pay off anything because you can't afford to. So you just keep going more and more into debt.
All of your high interest debt needs to go. It's non-negotiable. Once you pay that off using an avalanche or snowball plan, you go back and you save your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in a high yield savings account. Now that money's already going to be working for you, making free money in a high yield savings account, but we're going to take it a step further and start investing your money. I don't mean crypto or individual stocks. I mean things like index funds or ETFs. I have more content about that if you're interested.
Invest your money, the money you're paying for rent. Wait, what? No. No, if you have no money because you have to put it all on rent, then yeah, good luck.
Now you may be thinking, I don't have enough money to save. I can barely pay my bills. This is where sacrifice comes into play. You want to hit these milestones by any means necessary. That means you might have to get side jobs temporarily.
Side jobs. I don't know how many people I know that have a full-time job and they're doing like Uber and Lyft and stuff like that, and they're still barely making their rent.
You might have to invest your time to learn new skills that can bring you more money. You have to learn how to say no to friends and family.
Which also learning new skills usually requires money to pay to access the training for those new skills. And learn to say no to family, yeah, and friends. If you can't afford it, if you manage to actually save $100, don't go out and spend it. Try to save it.
Who don't know what your financial goals are. You have to let go of your image, okay? So quit trying to buy the newest phone, the newest car, the biggest car you can afford, the biggest house you can afford. Is it fair that sometimes people have to work 2, 3, 4 jobs just to make ends meet plus try to hit their goals? No, not really. But you can either focus on that and stay stuck, or you can focus on trying to hit these goals and get yourself into a better situation.
Is it fair? No. So that's why I'm saying this could be a fair way to make everybody's lives better. The only people it's going to really affect are the big business owners. Yeah, you might argue and say, oh, some of the small business owners, won't be able to afford it. But it's like, really? No. Okay. When we were going through COVID, these same business owners talking about, oh, I can't afford to pay my employees any more money, per month. And then COVID hits and you're listening to them complain. They're not getting their $30,000 to $50,000 a month from their small business. It's like, I'm glad you're making that much, but you know what? Part of the reason why you're making that much is because you're not paying your employees properly. Yeah, and this is the 30 to 50,000 was profit take home to them after they paid all the expenses, paid all their employees, paid for everything. This is how much money they were taking home every month. Okay, and they were, oh, I'm having a hard time. I didn't make my $30,000. Yeah, because you overextended because you were expecting to get that every single month. But you know what? Small business, no, you shouldn't be making that much per month unless you're paying your employees properly. And that doesn't mean prices need to go up. You should just take the hit and realize owning a small business, you're not going to be making 30 to 50,000 a month. Yeah, you might be making 10 to 20,000 a month. Okay, and from the business, and then if you're an employee there, you're making that money too. Which is another thing they don't tell you. It's like, oh no, I'm the manager, and I pay myself as the manager, so I'm getting this much every year. And then on top of that, I own the company. So after I pay myself, I'm also getting this much profit every month from owning the company. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, wow, y'all just make up any reason to, get over on people. And then also, CEOs and normal worker, there used to not be that much of a difference, or there was a big difference, but it's gone up. The difference, the divide between the regular worker and the COO or CFO or wherever it is, the difference has gone up like 1,000% or more or something. I don't remember. I'd love to find that video again one of these days, but it was showing the statistics showing how much over time the regular worker is getting less and the owners and people in charge keep getting more. They keep getting more for the same amount of work, and we keep getting less.
Working multiple jobs does not have to be forever, but guess what? Like I said, by any means necessary, you need to hit these goals. So if it takes you a couple years of working side jobs and working a lot of hours to finally get to a place of financial freedom, it is worth it. Trust me. You're also going to have to do some mindset work because mindset is absolutely everything. Mindset alone, just sitting there thinking about positive things, doesn't get you rich, no, but mindset opens up opportunities that you can't even imagine.
Yeah, I get that. And being open to trying new things and trying new ways to make money and stuff. But, you know, I've been working on making money and making more money. I've been busting my butt for over 20 years. And now that I finally have, like a degree, I'm making, better money, but it still ain't nothing for California prices. And it's just insane where I'm still trying to work 2, 3 other jobs because what I make from the normal job is just not enough. And I make good money compared to everybody else. I'd say I'm in the, top, I don't know, 15, 20% or something, I think, uh, of earners in the state. And that's still because of housing prices and stuff like that. It's just like, it feels like I'm only doing a little bit better than I used to. It's crazy.
When you do a lot of mindset work, you let go of limiting beliefs, you get out of the victim mentality, you start to realize that you
That
are
is
actually
crazy.
in control of your life and you can make anything happen for yourself that you want to.
If you don't do anything, if you don't ever change anything, nothing is ever going to get better. It might get worse, but it's never going to get better. And I agree with that. But also, mindset doesn't change it. If you're sitting up to your neck in a pile of poo, changing your mindset about where you're at is not going to change anything. Yeah, changing your mindset, oh no, I'm stuck here or I got to try to get out of this. Okay, yeah, that's going to help, but it doesn't immediately change your situation. I mean, it can help you change your situation. Oh, I got to get out of it. But then, it's still all over you, even if you get out of it. And how far can you actually get away from it? Because there's systems that don't want you to get away from that.
And take it from me because I used to be worse than broke. I had $0, even negative, in my bank account, and I was a single mom, very much struggling to get by. Because of all these things I'm talking about, I am now on the path to becoming rich in my future. I also want to talk a little bit about letting go of your image, and I'm going to use myself as an example again. I want a new Tahoe, and I have the money to go and get it. But should I do that right now? Should I go and buy a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 vehicle when I could be sinking that money into my investments that's going to get me a way bigger return?
See, I agree with that. But at the same time, she just gave herself away. She has the money to go buy a new Tahoe. That's insane. I don't have the money to go buy a new Tahoe. I don't. That's insane. How much money does she make now? It's like, yeah, I mean, having the mindset helps and keep working and striving helps, but you got to make more money.
I have goals and I'm going to hit them by any means necessary. And for me, that looks like me continuing to drive around my paid off minivan because it has no payment.
That's really smart. I drive a vehicle I own. It's an older vehicle. It's not super old. It's still nice, but I'm not going to go get a new vehicle. I mean, it works perfectly fine, and I own it. I don't have to pay anything for it every month. So that's extra money I can sink into investing, which I do. But for some people, if you're the type person, I have family members, that have disabilities and stuff, and they're never going to do better than making minimum wage. It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart when I think about that because I know that they'll never get a better minimum wage job. I mean, yeah, okay, there might be some weird freak chance that it might happen or something, but because of their disabilities, it's just they're never going to be able to. And so they're going to be pretty much stuck at minimum wage or minimum wage plus a couple raises, which is ridiculous anyway, because I've seen, companies hire people and then they give you 2 raises and then they hire the new people in at the new normal wage for that company. Now the new people are making more money than you are. It's like, wait, hold on. I've been here for 2 years how are the new people making more money than me? Well, you were hired at a different time. It's like, no, I should be making the same amount of money plus that they're making, plus my pay raises on top of that. It's like, come on, these companies are always out to, I hate to add to that, negative mindset, but there are so many things stacked against us.
I send that money straight to investments, and that money is growing me money while I sleep. Everybody's goals are different. Everybody's threshold for going aggressively at their goals is different. So you have to decide, what does that look like for you? For me, that looks like being content with the material things that I have right now, being content with not getting my nails done every 2 weeks. I do them at home now. And guess what? I don't restrict myself down to the bare bones minimum. I let myself have fun with my money, and I still am able to hit my goals. That's because I did a lot of sacrifice up until this point to get to where I am right now. And I'm no different than you are. I promise you. Go look at my story on my page, my journey. It's pinned at the top of my page, and you will see what my journey has looked like.
So for a lot of people, if you're in the middle class or you're making better than minimum wage, and she has a good point that a lot of people live beyond their means. It's like, okay, you can barely afford. They're like, oh, okay, I got this much money per month, and then okay, so I can pay my rent, I can go buy a car with a payment, and pay for the insurance and stuff like that. And then it's like, okay, if you miss any money or you have anything happen, now you can't afford it. Now you're going in debt. So that as you make more money, financial literacy is important.
I've worked 14-hour days. I've worked multiple jobs at a time. I've invested thousands of dollars to learn new skills. I've done it all. I promise this is possible for you too. You just need to have some mindset shifts, and you need to understand that the main goal is making your money work for you. That's the goal by any means necessary, and that is why I'm on TikTok teaching the things that I teach, because this is possible for anybody. So commit to yourself. You're going to do one thing today to get you closer to your goals, whether that is sitting down and making a plan, or you can go to my bio and get my free Money Mastery Basics guide. That will get you started. Just do something that's going to bring you closer. You got this, friend. Here's a secret that...
Yeah, tell that to the single dude that can't get better than minimum wage. He tries to learn new things and he can't. He's just not good at learning. He's just, for lack of a better word, he's an idiot. Okay, he's not very bright. If he took an IQ test, he might be really low. And there's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't mean they're less of a person. But the problem is, it means they're not going to be able to do all these things. And, part of the culture nowadays is like, no, if you're poor, if you can't save money and make it, that's on you. And it's like, no, the world changed. Okay, my parents, they bought their first house on military wages. My dad was in the military. He'd only been in the military for like 2-3 years. And he was already buying a house. Right? I've never even had the chance to buy a house yet. I think another year or two I might be able to start buying something. But it's just, the times are different. It's crazy. I want to look at some of these comments. Oh yeah, my problem is engender fund gets built to 1,000, then boom, emergency comes. It's never ending cycle. Yeah, part of that might be living beyond your means, or a large part of that might just be because of the cost of living. The cost of living is insane. After actively setting aside $200 a week, I realized that I spend a lot of money on little treats that I just don't need. Now, see, this is a person that, okay, yeah, you shouldn't be spending $200 a week on stuff. That, I'm glad. I hope you learn your lesson and stop doing that, because, that is part of financial literacy. You could start saving that money, like this lady's saying. That's cool. And that's what she was talking about how you have to, let go of image and also sacrifice, So I used to hate that. My husband would never let us get loans for things, but now I am so grateful. We are debt free and it is awesome. People don't realize that having an addiction keeps you down. The addiction needs to be handled. Food addiction, shopping, alcohol, gambling. Yeah, there's all sorts of addictions. Food, I don't know. Food, I still think, is a genetic thing with a lot of people. Uh, I have theories based on, and how your ancestors lived, adjusting your DNA accordingly to make it, if your ancestors starved, your DNA might change and be like, no, when there's food around, you need to eat as much as possible because we don't know when our next meal is going to come. And even though we consciously know that's not true, our DNA doesn't know the difference. But, I go into that. I'll go into that into a video one of these days. I have no debts. I have the emergency funds. My problem is I'm scared to invest my money. Okay, yeah, that's just lack of knowledge. You need to go get some more information, man. Yeah, S&P 500, dude. S&P 500. These financial literacy discussions are critical and should have been topics covered at dinner growing up. Everyone talks about HYSA, but no one mentions you have to pay taxes on the interest you earn. Yeah, but that's by any means necessary. Was waiting for someone to notice. Yeah, it's by any means necessary, and that's the mentality, the mindset you have to have is I'm going to do this no matter what. But unfortunately, I think for some people, like I said, some of my family members, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to just because of the cost of living. When almost 100% of their paycheck goes towards rent and they can barely afford food and they go to, I forgot they called that the food places where you can get food and stuff, local churches and stuff, the food pantries and stuff. I just wish I could get my family on board for learning financial literacy. Which, yeah, I think a lot of people do have issues getting everybody they know on financial literacy. I've known lots of women over the years that they didn't seem to care. It's like, no, let's spend. All right, this is gonna be the last one. The last little video I just wanted to show you. I was mentioning S&P 500 for investing. I just thought it was kind of funny.
If you go to a cocktail party and somebody comes up to you and says, "I have $100,000 I'd like to invest," what do you would recommend that person do with $100,000? What do you think is a good idea to do with $100,000 today?
Sometimes they do, and I give them the most boring answer ever: S&P 500.
Just buy an index.
Buy the index. You don't have to worry about the quarterly earnings of a company. Did something change? Did somebody change management? You don't have to make this your full-time job. Just buy the index, you're going to be okay.
If you go to a cocktail party and
just buy the index, you're going to be okay. Which I get that because I think they got like 10% growth on average over the last 20, 50 years or something like that. It's one of the safest investing, one of the safest ways to invest your money. Obviously, like CDs and stuff, savings accounts is safer. But high yield savings accounts, CDs, IRAs, stuff like that, the most you usually get out of any of those is like 4%. And that's on a good year. That's like when the economy is booming and they're giving consumers like the best rate possible on their investment, 4%. Maybe 4. I think the highest I ever saw was like 4.1 or something like that I've ever had. Cause yeah, I've had IRAs and 401ks and stuff, but they take a lot of time. I do the max investment for my paycheck, but unfortunately it takes time. All right, y'all, that's all for today. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do y'all think this could work? Do y'all think it's a good idea? Do you think I'm crazy? Just let me know what you think in the comments. And if you have any other ideas or anything that you'd like me to explore, please let me know. See y'all next time.